Welcome to the Fashion Translator. I'm Claire, your host. Together we explore how AI and innovation are reshaping the fashion industry through creativity, technology, and global partnership. For today's episode, we are welcoming Laura Zwanziger, founder of Fit for Everybody. Laura, thank you for joining me. Please introduce yourself and the company.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, my name is Laura Zwanziger. I am the founder of Fit for Everybody. Fit for Everybody is a product development platform for designers and factories to streamline sampling and sizing from the design stage.
Tell us more about the process. Like once this starts, the different stage, walk us through a bit more in detail.
The story arc of how we got here is that I started my career working as a designer. And it felt like we were doing the same thing every season, expecting a different outcome in terms of accuracy and design, sales, and kind of what happens in the sustainability aspect of things when there's so much waste just inherent in a design process. And then how does that snowball into production? And that was really frustrating to me. So I actually pivoted from working in design. I went to business school and got my MBA and wanted to focus on supply chain and operations for apparel. And while I was back in school, I got to take a step back and take a bit of a deep dive into the apparel supply chain in a way that I couldn't do when I was the client, and got to see each step in the process. We started with the hypothesis of if you have more measurements of more people, you can make better sizes. And that was really the starting point for Fit For. I was going out with a tape measure and measuring my classmates in business school. It was a very hands-on, scrappy process. And while I was conducting these interviews along the supply chain, the thing that kept coming up that was not what I had initially expected was that designers were saying, my factory didn't listen to me. I gave directions and they weren't followed. And the factories would come back to me and say, I got directions and I didn't understand what they were, but I was nodding and saying, yes, I understand. And this communication gap became the really juicy starting point for where Fit for Everybody's product started. So Fit for Everybody became a product development platform focused on that communication between the designer and the factory so that with the fewest iterations possible, brands are getting to an accurate garment, following through all the way to quality control of your production. So being really accurate and specific in that development process. That's the story arc of how we built the Fit For platform.
You're bridging the gap really between the design and the factory. Which part needed the more bridging? Like, was this like at initial spec, or like does it come later on with grading or after first prototype? When would you say is the part that your support comes in the biggest?
So I think it depends on the brand and the maturity of the brand and whether that brand is coming from an apparel design background or somebody is starting a brand and they don't have an apparel background, but they're going to lean into different features. If you went to design school, you know how to make a tech pack, you know how to do a point of measurement diagram, and you're really specific. We give the space for you to be able to do your own. But if you've never measured a garment flat, we give you directions for that. So the amount of built-in hand-holding is there from the design side. And then as we move through the process, the factory just has a really nice template. If you're used to seeing a tech pack in Excel, there's nothing on our platform that would be surprising to you. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel on that. We're just making it really clean, really easy to understand. Features like chat with translation becomes really useful when you have somebody on a factory floor who's really good at making clothes and maybe doesn't speak the language of the designer.
Right.
So going for what is the lowest level intervention point to make it easier to communicate when you start off having some instructions and what you want at the end is a product.
So that would be kind of for the startup, but I feel like this solution and this process can be also very useful to even bigger brand that can spend less time. I'm sure you can adjust and tailor to different type and different brand, their growth stage.
Exactly. There are so many well-established brands who are still doing their tech packs in Excel, and they maybe started using a PLM system at some point because there was something kind of sexy about AI and a lot of really big sales pitch promises. And then the people making the tech decisions about what was being bought and brought into the company were not the people in the company using them. And if those products don't make the end user, being the designer's life easier, any kind of boasted improvements don't end up happening because there's resistance to onboarding and continued use. So then you end up with major brands going back to Excel as the tech platform. And there's so much room for human error, miscommunication that exists in a tech pack. And there's so much information that goes into such a small amount of space that we work to make it really efficient. So if you have been using Excel for your tech packs, again, there's nothing surprising about our platform, but there's only one place you can put in information for each piece of information. So inconsistencies that build out during a design process, we control for that. So again, just going through the really helpful things that regardless of how seasoned a designer you are, everyone has fallen into the, I didn't update the third tab in my Excel because I wasn't looking at that tab. And now there's two different pieces of information and the factory floor went off of the one tab. I didn't double check. And again, regardless of the maturity of a brand, it still happens.
It does. What you're mentioning are common human mistakes that are still happening today. And maybe you want to tell us a bit more about how you're leveraging technology and how you're working towards reducing these human interaction and error as much as possible.
Yes. So we put on guardrails in our technology, and it's not about replacing the expertise of a well-seasoned designer. AI doesn't correct for that. But what we do is streamline a process so that it's really clean and maybe the administrative tasks that someone who's a really great designer is not either not that interested in or has not honed those skills because they're focusing on design. We support in that way because no one employee is going to be all one thing. And if you're hired for design, you should be able to spend more of your time doing design. I don't know where I heard this statistic, but I had someone say to me early in my career, if you work as a designer, only 10% of your time is going to be design and then 90% is going to be everything else. Someone saying that to me at 21 was just devastating because all I wanted to do was design. And most of my career has been finding out what a random black button was on a garment that showed up from somewhere.
Exactly.
We use technology as a supportive tool to the creative human side of design. And that for us is a really great use case for technology and how it works with the creative process as opposed to against it or replacing it.
Tell us more about certain challenge that you overcame through the process of building this and also certain wins that you're very proud of with the brand.
I think for us, getting to see the product in action with brands and what the impact was is really exciting. In our first round of beta, we were saving small brands as much as 30% of their development budget just by cutting out rounds of sampling. And if you are a small emerging brand, self-funded, that's a lot of money. And I mean, regardless of what scale of company, that's a lot of money. And it's really exciting to see that. There have been so many iterations of product lifecycle management tools and promises made. And I think brands and factories in some ways become more hesitant because if you tried one and it didn't work, that's going to impact the way you perceive every other iteration after. Or different company that just exists in that space. So we found success in approaching smaller brands that have a product that they've started with are ready to scale and really honing in on not just every branded designer, but who can benefit the most immediately. And generally folks who have not tried a PLM system before. A pretty big indicator for us of who's really receptive to using it, because if a brand isn't on board with starting using a tech, it's dead in the water before it starts.
Definitely, it's a learning curve both for them. How has it been received from the factories? And did you got some feedback about this process? How is it integrated on their end?
To speak to the factory side of things, when we built out our product and we beta tested, we built out the design side, but we also beta tested with factories. So the requests for what features were helpful for them were different than what was helpful for a designer. And so we built out to these two different customers. And so features that factories really like is being able to provide a point of measurement diagram to a brand that maybe has never seen a point of measurement diagram and had no baseline for measurements and maybe sent a sample that they didn't measure, or they took a chest measurement from a slightly odd position and said, everyone takes their chest measurement from here. And the factory is thinking, I've never seen that before. And I've seen a lot of sweaters. I'm a sweater designer. We saw a lot of our factories say, will you introduce this to this brand who doesn't really know how to make a tech pack because it makes it easier? And again, to the point previously, if a technology doesn't make a customer's life easier, it's not going to be adopted. So our growth was all through word of mouth and that network of back and forth of factories saying, talk to this designer, the designer saying, I have 3 factories. Talk to this factory. And you end up with this really cool network effect of if it's useful, people will use it.
Yes. I think when there's this much value provided, it will spread pretty wide. I think there's so much potential. What got you initially? So you told me it's from your designer's experience that you wanted to give more space to design. I think a lot of designers around the world can really relate to that. And what would be the next phase? Where do you see the company grow in the next 5 years, let's say?
Our next step as a company is going to be joining one of our clients, Hen Inc., in order to build the most requested feature that we had not pursued at Fitfra. And this feature is introductions between brands and sustainably certified suppliers and manufacturers. Hen offers full package luxury apparel design services for corporate clients and emerging brands without an in-house design team. And that's available now. And
amazing.
We offer introductions to vetted factories, and that's embedded in the offering. Hen is like we did with Fit for Everybody, where we started with consulting and moved into a broader space of tech adoption from a white glove approach. Hen is using this consultancy to enter into a broader landscape of brand factory networking across regions and price points.
Have you been implementing AI? Is your platform connected with AI in any way?
So there are AI-enabled aspects of the process, but not without that human touch. And I think having that balance is really important. There are things that AI is really good at. An example would be mass customization. That's not really a space that I personally work in. AI is really good at making a bespoke pattern off of measurements. Also, a really great pattern maker is going to be really good at that. So we balance what AI doesn't really do, like an introduction where we can really stand out, but supporting, again, those administrative, less sexy parts of the process with the technology.
I think that's a great balance to keep the human soul and the human contribution and then pairing it with technology and enhance there's really a bright future for so many aspects of the fashion industry. Yeah, I think on of potential for this new collaboration, this new chapter, there's a lot of great things going on. Thank you, Laura, for taking time to meet with me today. It was a pleasure speaking with you. As we close, if you want to share with our listener what's the best way for them to reach you.
The easiest way to reach me is likely through my LinkedIn, Laura Zwanziger. There's not very many of us. You can also reach me at my email, which is laura@hen-house.com.